Hello, parents. Welcome to the Masterful Parenting Podcast. I'm Ann Alvarez, parent coach, school counselor, and mother of two. Do you sometimes struggle with your parenting role? Do you notice that sometimes you're repeating patterns that you learned in your own childhood? Maybe you are carrying childhood pain that has not been healed, and you notice that it is showing up in your parenting with your own children. Perhaps you yell or get frustrated easily. Maybe you are directing them or telling them what to do all the time, and you notice that your actions are affecting your relationship with your children. Well, parents, I totally understand this. I came from childhood pain and I learned how to be a relational parent with my children. And I can teach this to you as well. This podcast is all about learning how to heal the childhood pain that we are carrying so that we can foster healthy relationships with our kids. Join us every week for a new show, and we will dive into the healing and the fostering of healthy relationships with our children. Hello, everyone. It is my honor and privilege to share my testimony on the Beautifully Transformed podcast. And I want to share my story of God's grace and his power in my life. When I was young, I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. My parents were very controlling. They were not relational at all. And children were to be seen and not heard. And as a result, I really believed that I had no voice, and that my opinion didn't matter, and that I had no power. My aunt was very, very Christ-led. And she sent me Norman Vincent Peale readings when I was a teenager to help me and to uplift me because she knew that my mother could be really, really difficult and hard on me. And that was what brought me to God, actually going to church weekly. And those readings of Norman Vincent Peale helped me to grow in my faith of God. But I will tell you the moment that I really realized that God is real and that God answers prayers. When I was 12 years old, I had been abused already by my father, molested, touched inappropriately in my private parts when I was a kid, probably from the age of 10 to 12. And instinctively, I knew it was wrong, but he was my dad. I didn't want to think badly about him, but in my gut told me that it wasn't okay for him to touch me in that way. And at the age of 12, I was becoming a woman. I got my period. I was starting to develop. And I realized that if the abuse continued, that I would be seriously messed up. I don't know, somehow in that 12-year-old mind of mine, I knew that if the abuse continued, I would be seriously messed up. And so I prayed this prayer, this prayer of release and pain to God. I asked God to remove my dad from the family. I said, God, if there is a way that you can remove my father to protect me, please make a way. And within that week, my mother announced to my brother and I that my dad was moving, that he was going back to the Orient and he was going to pursue work there. I knew my prayer was answered. And the surprising thing is that my dad never came home. So I was protected throughout my teenage years and young adult life. That was the first moment that I realized God answers prayers, that God hears every prayer that we speak. and he moves in the direction of protection and help. So that was one moment that I really, really felt this connection to God and his desire to help us and protect us. And growing up was difficult in my family because I didn't feel loved. But throughout my life, God has given me people to love me and for me to love them. I've had some amazing friends and have been to their homes and seen what a loving family is. And that is something about God is he works through people and he will give you insight into another way that you can live. That maybe the way you're living isn't the best way, but there is another way and he will show you, he will guide you and give you that. And the other thing that God has taught me is that forgiveness is the key to healing. I remember in my adult life when I was holding on to this pain of feeling unloved, feeling controlled, um, feeling I had no voice, that God was working forgiveness in my heart. And I sought to find out more about my parents, about their story, and to understand why they did the things they did. What was the pain they were carrying that they could mistreat their children? And God revealed to me their childhood pain. I was able to uncover a little bit of history on my dad and my mother and understood that they also did not get what they needed as children. And so that helped me to develop empathy for them and to ultimately forgive them. Now, my dad passed away when I was 21, suddenly, unexpectedly, and I didn't have a chance to confront him about the abuse. But I did forgive him. And I felt his presence when he died. He did actually visit me in a dream. And I was able to release the pain of the abuse. And then with my mother's a my mother and my relationship is really a testimony to God and his love because we've had a lot of ups and downs throughout the years, but God has still given me a heart for her. You know, she's my mom and I want to love her, even though she can be, you know, she has been toxic and she has been um, abusive in her words and her deeds. But throughout it all, I established boundaries, but I still came back to try to love her. And what God taught me is that love is the ultimate healer, and love is the only way to change a person's heart. So I worked on loving her, and I asked God to help me to love her and help me to see her in the way He sees her. And now, years later, my mom and I have a really great relationship. And I'm so grateful that we have been able to come full circle to that moment of forgiveness and being able to appreciate and love each other now. So God has worked with me on that relationship. And I am so grateful for that. Then in 2021, I went through a personal crisis. My ex-husband, my former husband, he had been suffering for depression for about 3 or 4 years. And I had tried to help him, but of course, I was the enemy and the cause of all um, his problems. And so I wasn't really able to help him. And then in 2021, he left me and I was devastated because actually I loved him. And I would have stuck through it. I would have stuck through an unhealthy, toxic marriage for the sake of love and keeping the family. But he left and I leaned into God. I prayed a lot during that time because I had an emptiness and a feeling of failure. But God revealed to me that He was protecting us, my family, my boys and I, because it wasn't healthy living in that kind of environment with a spouse who did not want to work with you or problem solve, but was just blaming. It hurt our whole family to be living with that. And we endured it for a long time. But God showed me that that's not the life that I'm supposed to lead. And I cannot fulfill God's mission living in a toxic home life. And I realized at that moment, and many, many moments too, that my plan is not better because I would have stayed in that marriage. But God's plan is always better. We may think something is tragic when we're going through things in our lives, but God sees the big picture of it all. And He knows what is good for us and what isn't. And we have to lean into His guidance, His protection, and His way. So when I released that marriage, that relationship, understanding that it was for our protection, then I was able to move forward with my life and lean into God's plans. In fact, after the ending of my marriage, I had a serious talk with God. I said, God, my life looks nothing like I thought it would be. And so I'm releasing it to you. My life is yours now. What would you have me do? And amazingly, God had such a clear answer to my question. He said, I want you to be part of the healing of this world. Wow. That spoke to my soul because I was wounded. I came from woundedness. I came from a place of needing to be healed because of my childhood, because of the abuse, because of the toxic home life I grew up in. And I needed healing from the marriage. And so healing was such an important word that God used in my life. And what I realized was I had a story to tell and to share and to move through a testimony of what my mission is today. And my mission today really is the healing of parents so that they can raise healthy, competent uh, young people. When we heal our childhood pain, then we can be better parents. And so that is what began the mission of Masterful Parenting, which is the business that I founded and where I work with parents on the healing journey and not repeating the patterns of their childhood with their kids and learning how to be healthy with their children so that they can love them and foster good relationship with them. Because Jesus was very relational. And we as Christians need to be more relational, not controlling, not judgmental, because that's when our kids can thrive. So the mission of my life today is because of that moment of crisis, the ending of my marriage, and me leaning into God and asking God what He wants. What do you want from me, God? And every day I spend time with God now. I seek his direction with everything because I feel like I didn't seek His direction before. And I got hurt by that. But now I know He's protecting me and loving me. And so I'm going to always seek His advice and His protection. Seek His will, and your life will be blessed. In Genesis 12:2, it says, I will bless you, so you will be a blessing. And God wants to bless us. He will show us how to heal. He will show us how to get protection. He will show us what is healthy. and how to make our lives better. And another verse that I leaned into was Joshua 9, 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. For the Lord your God, our God, will be with us with wherever we go, in every step, in every journey. So God, without God, life is empty. And God wants to be a part of our lives. So for those of you listening out there, I just want you to know God is real. God answers prayers. God will protect you and God will give you guidance. And so if you lean into God every day and you pray and you ask, you will receive, because his ultimate goal is to bless us so that we can be a blessing to others. Your life, your challenge, whatever you're going through, is meant to be a testimony to God's work and grace. So if you are in a storm right now and you are wondering, where do I go from here? I will tell you, lean into God, pray, read his word, and trust him, because he will get you out of the storm and he will bless you abundantly in all the things you are missing, in relationships, in finances, in direction with your children. He will bless you abundantly if you lean into him. And that is my testimony. I hope that this message will bless you as well, and that you will have faith and believe and have hope, because God is working out a great plan for your life. And all you have to do is believe, because God is working through every trial you're going through. Thank you so much for listening to my testimony, and God bless you. Thank you, parents, for joining the show today. If this show blessed you, changed you, or helped you in any way, I would appreciate a Google review or a review on my podcast. And I would love you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Masterful Parenting, so we can get the word out to more parents about relational parenting. Thank you so much, parents, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.